It is morning in the Alps, and we look down from the peak of the mountains, and we begin to see the steeple of a cathedral come into view, and behind it a viaduct. And we are entering now into Zurich, into the city, the big city of Switzerland, and we're seeing a street, which is the Bahnhof Street. We see someone waiting for a streetcar on a bench at the streetcar stop. Everything's quiet right now. As we move down the street and see these beautiful old buildings, behind it is Hauptstrasse. You see the streets that connect these two main streets. As we come along, we see the Rathaus. This is the City Hall. And we see a bank. There's the square of the City Hall, with people beginning to mingle about, and the fountain. We come back off a little, we'll see the main station, the Bahnhof. And there are several tracks here with trains on them. This is track 1. There's a train sitting there, and you see the platform. This is a train on track 2. Here's track 3. This happens to be the train that goes into the mountains, goes up into the mountains. This is track 4, with a train waiting on it. And then track 5, we see an overnight train, a sleeper train, that is waiting for departure on this track. And then on track 6, we see a train that is in storage. It is parked here, awaiting service later. Now as we come back down the tracks, we'll notice a few things at the other end. The signal lights are indicating that no traffic should be moving at the present time. They can certainly change to indicate either switching operation or slow operation or a go straight forward. As we come around, you'll see the control tower. Each of the stations has a control tower. The switches are controlled there. Everything is watched carefully as far as the movement of trains are concerned. Looking down the tracks, we'll see the signal lights at the end. Again, they're all red, so there is no movement allowed at the present time. No trains moving. As we come back down, see a switch engine parked on this side track along with another engine in waiting, another locomotive. Coming across, we'll see some people walking up and down the street. There's a man on a motorcycle. There's a policeman out in the middle of the road. And here's a part of the old tower, the old city wall, that now is simply a walkway for people to go through, a sidewalk, and trees there. And we see here someone standing ready to cross the street. We see, as we come around, the streetcar stop, all with the red signs indicating the stop, and there's a man with a suitcase waiting for the streetcar. Now let's come back and look at the cathedral. It's a beautiful building. If we look carefully, we can see some people entering. Somebody coming out, actually, someone going in. There's the fountain. And we're looking back on the other side to see Hauptstrasse and the viaduct. And if we look carefully, we can see a number of buildings here that face on Hauptstrasse. As we come back, make our way down the main street, which is Bahnhofstrasse. Again, looking over at the entrance to the City Hall, the Rathaus. And here we're going to see the end of the pavement and the beginning of what is really a park. A grassy area with flowers, wildflowers. There's another motorcyclist and a car coming along the road. Coming on down, we see part of the city wall between Bern and Zurich, actually. We'll come on around there in a moment. But for now, let's take a look at the old water tower. And here is where the passenger trains are stored, where they end. And we come on around, we're going to see the freight house, the freight building, where freight trains come in at this point, the other side of the water tower. And then there is this park. We call it Schwarze Park, the Black Lake, which is named for this very dark lake. And you see a fisherman out there in the water, doing some fishing. And over here is a picnic table where people can have a picnic. Very nice little park. We'll come on around and you'll see the clock flower garden, very typical for Switzerland. It makes a lot of watches. And so these flowers are planted in the shape of a clock. We see a gardener here taking care of the garden. And we see some people admiring the flowers and some people sitting on benches in the garden. And then the walk coming up there and a number of people walking along the walk. Now as we come back around, come past an engine that's just parked here in storage. This engine goes on a circuit that is what we call the inner track, pulling trains, actually 4 trains. Here we see the part of the old wall with the coat of arms and the entrance in. As we come down now, we are seeing the station at Bern. So there's the platform. Here's the main line track. And the second track goes up into the mountains. The third track is the inner track. And there's the station. So let's look at the street and see the streetcar coming through here. We have streetcar tracks. And here are the buildings in Bern. Typical Swiss Germanic buildings. And the little garden, which actually was inspired by a real garden in Croatia along the Danube. And notice the signal lights. Each station has, this would be the exit lights. And we come around the other end, the exit lights on this end of the station, and on the other side are entrance lights into the Bern station. And as we move on around, we see the entrance into the mountain itself with 5 tunnels from left to right, the outer main line, and we see here actually 3 different tracks converging to enter the mountain tunnel. A track from 2 tracks from Zug, plus the main track from Bern. The second track is the one going up into the mountain, And here we have the convergence of two tracks, the one from Zug and the one from Bern. The third tunnel is the inner circuit, and then the fourth and fifth tunnels are for streetcars. So there are 5 of them in all. And as we come on around, let's notice first the control tower for Zug. And actually this control tower controls both Zug and Bern. So it's positioned so that the trainmen can see both the Zug station and the Bern station. And here is the Zug station. And then let's back up. You can see the 2 trains, there's a freight train and a passenger train on the tracks at Zug. And then we'll see the buildings in Zug as we move along. And it ends here, and we'll see some trees. And at this point, we're going to move up to the upper level. Trains go up into the mountain level, and here we are seeing the station at Zermatt. This is the platform, and behind it is the station itself and some other buildings, and you see there the excursion train parked. And as we move around, here is a control tower for Zermatt, and this is a hunting lodge, an old hunting lodge, and here is the city church. Now while we're here, before moving on, let's go up and see if we can see the castle at Zermatt. It's a very beautiful castle way up in the mountains. There we go. And there's the tower of the castle, mountains behind it. And if we come over a little bit, we'll see some people standing on a bridge. If I can get them in focus. People standing on a bridge, looking at the beautiful scenery. And if we come around, we will see a chalet, typical Swiss chalet, way up in the mountains. And on around you can see the track. This is the track of the mainline trains coming up from the lower level. And then we see the track here for the station at Zermatt, and the chalet behind it. Now we're going to move around the corner at the upper level, seeing again the church, and you can see a store coming into view. This is looking now at Zermatt at a different view, and there's a fountain. And looking back at the station and the excursion train, there are 2 tracks there, and then the track to the right is the one that goes down the mountain. And at this point, we're going to engage the bridge that goes across, and serving as a viaduct and as a bridge. And so the passengers would have this beautiful view of the mountains as they cross. So we'll kind of follow it along. And there again up into the mountains. And then this very open bridge at the end of the cathedral, you can see these beautiful flowers on through. Now we'll come around to the city of Chur, which lies on the other side of the long viaduct. We're coming first to a chalet, and If we look carefully, we can see, there he is. We can see a man standing there guarding the entrance, or guarding the street, the crossing of the track, to keep people away from crossing the track if a train is coming. Trains coming in to Cour across the viaduct will go behind all of the buildings. So the buildings are up here, track goes behind. If we come in on this, we'll see a lady standing on the balcony of this chalet, which is also a hotel. There are rooms there. And coming on down, we'll see more people. There's some people eating out here on the outside cafe. This is a hotel. And there's a nice, pretty car out here. And people just milling around. And here is a chalet and a fruit and vegetable stand, plus this nice car parked out there. As we come on, we're beginning to enter the yards of the Cour station. You see this 2000 engine, which has been a real warhorse of pulling trains for many years, continuing to work very well. Coming past some more trees and into the yards, you see a control tower. It's not the main one, but it is a control tower for the station. There are 4 tracks here, and you'll see this single car train parked here. There is a second one with this red or maroon colored locomotive of the BLS. There's another train. This one is one that does connect, goes down to the lower level. And there's not a train on the first track. This is the second track, track 2. The first track is empty. And we come to the station and past the platform, which really is like a train shed. It's covered in this way. It's very beautiful, ornate, old style. I can come around so you can see it. Old style train shed. And the old locomotive. So a lot of older trains run at the upper level from Zermatt to St. Moritz through Cour, and then trains run from Zurich up into Cour, and they meet here. Now this is the main control tower for Cour. We'll come in a little bit closer. So switches controlled from here for Cour, and going down the mountain and coming in, going out of the station, going toward St. Moritz or going back toward Zermatt. All right, as we move along, let's take a look first at the castle at Cour. Quite impressive. Part of it back there is in ruins. There's a Swiss flag up there. If we come back here, we'll get a view of a farm. And you can see there are the farmers out there, and there's a horse and cows and a pig and some animals over on the other side. So this is the farm. You can see a church also. This is the church at St. Moritz, and there's a chalet there. If we lift up the view a little bit, we can see into St. Moritz, following the track here, actually. And there are streets. Maybe we can get a view of them. It's a little bit hard. We'll get a view in a moment. As we come around, let's begin to see the where the mountain goes on up. There's a stream. You see the stream going down. All of these mountains have their streams running down. And here's a hunting lodge. You can see some people there, and there's actually some cows and animals up there with. And off in the distance, you can just barely see, there's a little chapel. And there is a chalet back there. And that's where the train goes around kind of a circuit and then goes down into a tunnel and heads on down a ramp into the lower level. So we'll move on around. And here we'll see the ruined part of the castle. And over here we can see the church, and we're seeing some areas from the train side, and you can see some trains parked there. There are 3 tracks, and there are trains on 2 of them. VLS Express in the red train. And there's the station back there. And there's a store on some streets down there with people and all. It's very hard to actually see it from here. Now, at this point, we'll go back to the lower level. And as we come down, let's take a look at the control center, control building for St. Gallen. And then we'll look at the street, the main street in St. Gallen. And then the streetcar tracks. You can see the stop here, 1 stop, people waiting for the streetcar. And there is another one. Get over here. Right there, on the other side, for the tracks going the other way. And you can see the buildings in St. Gallen. And let's see if we can see the buildings on the other side of the street. Not so easy to see, perhaps, because of the tower. There we go. We can get a little bit of a view there. There's the buildings on the other side of the street. And that's the train station there, and you can see the streetcar stop. And if we come around to the tracks, there are 3 tracks coming through St. Gallen. The middle track is the one going up into the mountains. And this is the platform, which is really a very long one. I'll take a look also before we leave the lower level here at the fountain as one comes into St. Gallen, and then here's the tunnel for the streetcars. And we back away a little bit, we'll see the railroad tracks. And this is the beautiful onion dome church in St. Gallen. That greets you as you round the corner on the train and as you come in on the streetcar. Kind of the highlight of the city. And we come around, let's take a look at Appenzell, which is a small town, probably the smallest one we have. And here's the station. You'll see a passenger train. The track over here on the other side is for freight trains. So here's the freight station here. And with this, we'll probably conclude our overview and see if we can get some trains in motion. Let's take a look back now at where we've been. This is really the long corridor for trains traveling at the lower level. And these signals you see here are called distance signals. And we come back around into the main station, into Zurich.